Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Queen Studios quarter-scale Spider-Man statue unboxing and review video. Now today we are going to be taking a look at none other than the Iron Spider suit from Avengers Endgame. And I personally could not be more excited. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and a points-based reward system. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon, plus the join button for more info on Justin's Collection Plus, the YouTube channel membership. Now, to be totally honest with you, I never planned on picking this statue up. I was an admirer from afar, but I never thought that I would go all in on quarter-scale Marvel statues. Until I reviewed the Civil War Spidey, also from Queen Studios. It was so good that I immediately bought this guy and pre-ordered a bunch more of their products. Now that means you'll better stay tuned, because I've got a ton more quarter-scale Queen Studios Marvel statues on the way. It seems that Hot Toys don't really care about quarter-scale for Marvel, so I am more than happy to add a bunch of Queen Studios products to the display and fill out the Marvel ranks. Now as for Iron Spider, this guy looks incredible. Don't worry, we will be starting off with the base, then going through the various swap out pieces, because there are actually a few, especially if you go for the deluxe version. Now I was curious to see if the arms can come off. We will be addressing that as well, and how displayable either it is or isn't without those arms on. Even though we're fairly early in the video and we've got this moody, dim lighting with his LED eyes glowing, I'm pretty sure you can already tell that this guy has presence. Just before we move on, I did want to take a look at the Nano Gauntlet, the mini headstand, and the Tom Holland head sculpt separately to the statue. Don't worry, we will be popping them on him a little bit later. Now the headstand is made up of two separate components. This bottom base section, which is cold to the touch, but at the same time I'm hesitant to say it's made of metal. It's rather hefty and sturdy, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is polystone. You do have a gold Queen Studios logo around the back, then the main section is painted in matte black. Now up the top you do have this mini bust piece, which is attached via a very sturdy metal rod. You do also have a magnet, and it is painted in the same exact way as the statue itself. So you are getting a sneak preview. Now the head sculpt, of course, is attachable to the bust, and I think that looks awesome. I haven't quite decided as of yet which way I'm going to go with the statue in my display. Let me know which is your preference down below. And I guess the same thing can be said for the Nano Gauntlet. Now this entire arm does swap out via a magnet, and you do have to place the shoulder pad up on top. Don't worry, I will show you how that works, once again, a little bit later. Now, this is kind of the only thing tying Iron Spider to Endgame. What do I mean in saying that? Well, if you decide to omit it, this could technically be Iron Spider from Infinity War, Endgame, Far From Home, or No Way Home. It's entirely up to you. Whereas if you go with this, then it is very specifically an Endgame Spidey. Now the gauntlet itself is absolutely stunning. The metallic red is suitably glossy, you do have a bunch of washers down in all the crevices for the detail work, and yes, it does light up. You do have a little metal pin that if you touch will activate the LEDs. They aren't super vibrant, but they do get the job done very nicely. Once again, we will be popping this on him, and I'm very curious to see what this looks like. Heck, when we pop it on the statue, maybe that's going to help me make up my mind. Moving on to the Peter Parker head sculpt, I absolutely love the way this looks. I am very tempted to have this displayed full-time on the statue. Now, comparing it to the Civil War version, I already really liked this one, but I think the new one is a slight upgrade. The sculpt is identical, but the paint applications are a little bit better. You also have a new strand of hair around the front, whereas the original simply didn't have it. You've got dirt and grime and some battle damage above his eye. It just overall looks that little bit more realistic. You also have the neck section of his iron spider suit, which, when you connect it up to either the headstand or the statue, creates a very seamless look, because it kind of blends in with one of the web lines and has a jagged edge, just like we saw in the movie. Now, once again, I am curious, which way would you go? Let me know which of these head sculpts is your preference, and if I do have this head sculpt on the Civil War one, is it weird to also have another Peter Parker unmasked head sculpt on another quarter-scale Spidey statue? I'm kind of struggling to decide. But what we are going to do now, though, is get the Spidey statue itself out here and take a closer look. Which of course means starting off with the display base first. Now down below you have a very simple black border, but the rest of the base is far from simple. There is a lot going on. Now this is of course meant to be a bunch of rubble that works its way up to a platform where Spidey is sitting. Now the rubble is the remains of the Avengers compound from the end of Avengers Endgame. There are rocks, there are cement sections, there's brickwork, and even some metal style scaffolding, which of course isn't actually made of metal, but it definitely looks the part. Now it's all really nicely painted with multiple different layers. There are brown sections, there are grey sections, there's dry brushing, there's washes down in the crevices, and the pieces that are supposed to look like metal are suitably rusty, and almost look as though they've been heat treated by some kind of blast that would have hit this building. Now it does kind of have this hourglass look, and I am a big fan of how this comes across. I know it's not going to be for everyone, because you might be sitting there thinking, well, how would such a big platform balance on such a thin middle section of rubble? Now, I'm right there with you, but you can't deny it does look really cool. It starts off wider, then tapers up to a narrow point in the middle, and gets a lot wider up on top for Spidey's platform. Now the metal sections, as we discussed before, are nicely painted, but there is also a ton of texture on the surface. And the same thing can be said for the rockwork. He also has one of his mechanical Spidey arms that is wrapped underneath the display base, so it kind of looks like he's stabilizing himself and gripping on. Now, it does have a rather thin point at the sharp end, so do be careful when you are attaching it. The statue does come with a very comprehensive instruction manual that tells you how to install everything. Make sure you sit down, take your time, and you're going to be perfectly fine. Now up top for the platform, it is a triangular shape, so that means if you want to have Spidey displayed front on, you are going to be facing a point. Now that could be rather tricky for your display depending on how much space you have, but we will discuss that a little bit further later on. I like the way it's painted. Once again, there's multiple washes and multiple different colors here. Okay, so you all know I like the display base, but we're here for the main event. Let's move on to Iron Spider himself. Starting off with the shoes, there's a little bit of speckling of dirt and grime, so he looks a little bit weathered. And then as for the rest of him, I mean, he looks stunning. This guy on camera absolutely sings. He's a very nice metallic red with the web lines fully painted, but at the same time, it is slightly muted. Now, this look isn't going to be for everyone, but for me, this looks super accurate. I never thought Iron Spider was this super vibrant red. The slightly muted color, for me, is bang on. The gold for the web shooters is also muted. It overall has a softer color palette. One of the longest running debates with statues is museum versus dynamic posing. Now, you may be thinking, well, Justin, it's Spidey, he has to be in a dynamic pose, and I'm right there with you. But at the same time, you're now meeting one of the drawbacks. His entire front half is hidden in shadow. Now, if you light it correctly and view it from above, it's going to be perfectly fine, And luckily, I think the pose here more than makes up for not being able to see a lot of his outfit. It brings the presence, especially when it comes to his LED light-up eyes. Now, yes, it does take button cell batteries, which means you aren't going to have them lit up forever, but when you walk into the room you switch the lights on, this guy definitely pops. Plus, if you do hit that switch, you can switch the eyes to instant kill red, which is definitely very unique, although you can of course go with the Peter Parker head sculpt, and this might just be my preference. I already have the Civil War one displayed with the Peter Parker head sculpt, but I can't help myself, it just looks so darn good. Plus, with the addition of the battle damage on the cheek and above the eye, plus that strand of hair, I think this head sculpt looks even better. Now, as for the switch out arm for the nano gauntlet, we've discussed the gauntlet before, but now you can see you have to remove the shoulder pad to pop on the arm, and then you can activate the LEDs to complete the look. Now, unlike when I just popped on that Tom Holland head sculpt, I don't really know which way I'm going to go. I like both looks equally. When you have that Tom Holland head sculpt on and he's gripping the gauntlet with that fierce, determined expression, the entire statue just comes to life. But at the same time, when he doesn't have the gauntlet and his arm is just sticking out, it's still a very classic Spidey pose. Which does kind of lead on to the question of, okay, well, I like the pose, but I don't necessarily love the spider arms. Or say, for instance, you want to go with a comic book style look and only display him with 3. Well, I'm pleased to report they can come off, but unfortunately they don't include any covers to cover up the holes that are left over. Now, you will be seeing what that looks like when we do the comparison, because the front arm is huge. The arms themselves are really nicely sculpted, although they do feel a little bit fragile, so please be careful when you're popping them on. They do have metal rods that insert into the body, and they are all specifically keyed, so it's not like you can put them in the wrong position, but at the same time, when you are pushing them down, you don't want to put too much pressure on certain parts of the arms. Just attach them via the base section. Now, they're really nice and sharp for the point, then they do have gold and blue paint applications. There's a ton of ribbing detail on the surface, and there are washers in all the crevices. They look suitably metallic, and they look very mean. Now, around the back, you do have that big red spider symbol, but the arm connection points are on top of it. They are these big gold pieces. Now, they're not super unsightly, and they do sit relatively flush, but then again, it would have been really cool and set this guy way over the top if they'd included a couple of little cover pieces to hide those holes. Now, it wouldn't have been 100% seamless, but it would have added a little bit more variety for your display options, and for me, variety is always a good thing. Now, for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have Civil War Spidey, the tech suit, on the right, and Iron Spider from Endgame on the left. They are both wearing their Tom Holland head sculpts, and I have removed the arms. So now, as the Iron Spider spins around, you can see those holes. Now, you're never really going to be displaying him from behind, at least I wouldn't think so they're not going to be a massive eyesore. From the front, the presence is still there. Now, you can see the Iron Spider is significantly taller, and that's because of the display base. The pose is a lot wider because his right leg is sticking out, whereas the Civil War Spidey sits just a little bit taller. He's not crunched as far over. But you do have that Captain America shield, which is very movie specific. These are both super iconic Spidey poses, and I am having a real tough time deciding which is my favorite. I think I'm going to give you a cop-out answer and say that I like them both equally. Just wrapping up on the Queen Studios Iron Spider statue in quarter scale from Avengers Endgame. Now, going into this, I was really excited. I mean, how could I not be? I love their Civil War statue, And this guy is something else entirely. There's a lot going on, it's got LED light up features, and a few more swap outs than I've personally seen from Queen Studios. So yeah, he ticks a lot of boxes. Now starting off with the display base first, it is deceptively simple. At first glance you might be like, oh, it's just some rubble with the platform up on top. And yeah, I guess it is, but at the same time there is a lot more to look at if you look just a little bit closer. There is a bunch of variety to the rubble with some brickwork, some concrete sections, some steel girders, and it is all very nicely painted and sculpted. However, one could argue that it is kind of a little bit more simple to highlight Spider-Man himself. If the base was too flashy, then that's probably what you'd be looking at. I know, it's a bit of a cop-out thing to say, but in this instance, I think it really works. Plus, because the base platform is so big, it does cast a shadow down on top of the display base, so it kind of hides some of the detail in shadow where it highlights others. As for Spidey himself, I don't know if it's come across in this video, but I could tell when I was filming this guy, the camera loves this statue. The pose, the way it's been painted, the metallic flake, and the LEDs. I just cannot get over how good this statue looks both in person and on camera. Plus, you do have a bunch of different options with the head sculpt if you want the red LEDs or the blue ones or the Tom Holland head sculpt, or even a switch out arm with the nano gauntlet that does light up. You've got a multitude of different options. I am still uncertain which one I'm going to go with. I'm going to need your help. Let me know down below. So at the end of the day, can I recommend this statue? Well, that kind of depends on you. Do you like Iron Spider? I know not everyone loves this suit, but I am one that absolutely does. I cannot wait to put this guy in the display. The only thing that's kind of holding me back is, where is he going to go? Because that front arm sticks out really, really far. It would have been cool if there was some ratchets so I could have tilted it down, or I might simply just take it off and have 3 legs or none at all. Once again, variety is here. Now I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and a points-based reward system. I do also have to say a massive thank you to my buddy Slam Collections on Insta, link down below, for helping me film this statue. He does some amazing work, and I think it came through in this very video. Also, while you're down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon, plus the join button for more info on Justin's Collection Plus, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.